I am translate the news into sign language. The news headlines are sponsored by Munchie Biscuits. Munch into happiness. Now straight to our first story. Rotary International is to share its expertise with government in a variety of ways, including its vaccination agenda to stem the spreading coronavirus. When a representation from Rotary International interacted with President Akufo-Addo at the seat of government, the president of the International Service Organization, Mr. Shekhar Mehta, said Rotary is ready to help.
International politics surrounding vaccines is impeding the acquisition process, which is affecting many countries, including Ghana.
We'll bring you that story when it's ready. The Nadoli-Laura Hamley Highway is now open to traffic. Though the reopening is temporary, drivers and other road users say it will not only reduce traveling time, but also the additional cost incurred.
A portion of the highway was washed away by torrential rains recently. Earlier today, when the said road was still closed to traffic, our Upper West regional correspondent, Suala Abdul Wahab, updated us on the situation.
We are currently between Nadoli and Babili. This is the Yiziri portion of the road which was washed off. We are told that it is about 300 meters of the road which was washed off. And yesterday, part of the road was open to traffic, but it wasn't possible for the big articulated trucks to use it. But today, the assurances is that the road will be open to traffic by the close of the day. So what will that mean for the hundreds of drivers who are stuck at Nadoli for the past weeks?
They have finished this place, so we are able to pass this place to Jrapa and then Laura. But when they are able to pass Ping, we added 20 cities to it, make it 40. But now, right now, so far as we are able to use this road, Jrapa is now 20 cities.
Bridge be abu okwamo ti di kan na wo be say 5 days and san ye ba ti ba ha so ye hu so mo ye
sunzo jia sekerenje de jia surufe ruwan amma we de samu ya shenya ikerfi ba shi suka dakata da mu wai mu sai tukuna.
Though the opening of the road to traffic is temporal, drivers need to exercise maximum caution on using this portion. This will enable them to use it at such a time when government will be able to work on the road fully after the race. Suala Abdul Wahab, GBC News.
The Director General of the National Disaster Management Organization, NADMO, Mr. Eric Ajiman Prempe, has expressed gratitude to all the traditional rulers in the 5 regions of the North for their support over the past years in the community sensitization as part of the preparation plan towards the spillage of the Bagri and Kompienga dams in Burkina Faso. The NADMO Director General, who made the assertion when he paid a courtesy call on the Upper East Regional Minister, Mr. Stephen Yakubu, said the organization is working with the district assemblies, chiefs and opinion leaders to save lives and property when the valves of the dams are opened.
The Kompinga Dam upstream level today, Wednesday, September 1, 2021, is 174.95 meters. The filling rate is 55.71%. The Bagre Dam upstream level today, Wednesday, September 1, 2021, is 234.41 meters. The filling rate is 92.11%. According to Sonabel, managers of the dams, the water level in the Bagre Dam remains stable. They say the opening of the valves will begin when the height is 234.75 meters. Speaking with GBC News, the Director General of the National Disaster Management Organization, NADMO, Mr. Eric Nana Ajiman Prempe, commended all the traditional rulers in the 5 regions of the North and other stakeholders for their effective collaboration.
For now, we have 3 camps, one at Bazwa in the Upper East region, one at Walwale in the Northeast region, and Tamale
where we have the military, the police, marine, 48th Engineers Regiment of the Ghana Armed Force, and NADMO. We are all stationed there so that in case there's any disaster, we can move in to respond quickly. Unlike previously, when we would come and wait until it get to West before we call in the police or the military. This time around, government decided that we all come together.
Mr. Agyemang Prempeh said a major challenge confronting his outfit is the need to relocate those living in flood-prone areas, particularly some of the communities in the Mampurugu Mwaduri district of the Northeast region, popularly known as Overseas.
The only problem we have now is some of the indisciplined attitude of some of the residents who are closer to the both rivers, the White Volta for instance. They are farming, they are living there, and you try to convince them that at least for this period they must move to stay with their friends and relatives so that after the spillage they can go back. But sometimes it's difficult. Sometimes somebody will tell you, this is where my grandparents were buried, this is where my uncles, my whatever were buried, therefore I wouldn't leave until it gets to West. But you know, you cannot force people, so we try to convince them.
The Upper East Regional Minister, Mr. Stephen Yakubu, commended the leadership of NADMO for embarking on aggressive sensitization exercises ahead of the spillage of the dams.
The farmers are aware that this thing will occur, but they will still farm very close to the banks.
NADMO has also entreated residents of the flood-prone areas to move to higher and safer grounds and integrate with families and friends in such areas.
Illegal possession of offensive weapons, especially firearms, continues to be a challenge for Ghana and the country's security apparatus. A number of armed robberies, murders, and what appears to be contract killings have taken place in the past few days, most of which involve the use of firearms. Security and safety analyst Mr. Adam Bona says there is an ongoing advocacy for the Commission on Small Arms and Light Weapons to be made an authority. The agency will then have the power to ensure proper transfer of weapons and weapons license renewal and establish appropriate punitive measures for unlawful handling and possession of firearms and other weapons in the country.
Most firearms that are legitimately registered never get renewed. And so let's have a centralized database capturing everybody who owns a firearm in Ghana. If you haven't renewed it, the penalty should be punitive enough for you not to renew it. But this country, people don't renew it and we don't look for them.
Security and safety analyst Mr. Adam Bona said the proliferation of firearms can be curtailed if local producers of the weapons are identified in our communities.
Obviously, you cannot go into a community without knowing who a blacksmith is. Most of them have turned themselves into gunsmiths, producing firearms, all sorts of firearms. There has to be that concerted effort. Are we training them? If we think that we cutting, them off their source of, livelihood, it's a challenge. Let's have a policy where maybe school caterers are going to be made to use cookware produced by these blacksmiths. Then they will move away from producing guns. If not, you would arrest 1,000 boys with sidearms or single barrel and double barrel revolvers produced locally, but you have not arrested the guy who produced them.
Commenting on the use of firearms by herdsmen and the recent arrest of the 22 herdsmen in Donkokrom in the Afram Plains North District of the Eastern Region, Mr. Bonar said, though herdsmen would continue to protect their cattle, their use of firearms should be controlled.
People even lose their firearms and they don't report to the police. So the armed robbers came and beat me and took my gun away, or they broke into my house and my gun was stolen. So you have young boys who are literally armed with firearms. So we need to work a bit faster in ensuring that these weapons, light weapons and small arms in the hands of people is taken out, and also nomadic herdsmen. They use them to protect their cattle. And when they no longer have the cattle, what do they use them for? farmers, when they no longer have their farms, what do they use the firearms for? Nomadic herdsmen, I can tell you that 99% of them with firearms are not registered. And they are using firearms that must be used by the police, AK-47s and submachine guns, which I think that we should put in more effort at ensuring that these things probably, they never get to use this firearm or even own them at all.
Mr. Bonar called for volunteering and sharing of security information. He also said Ghanaians should have confidence in the country's security apparatus. He said crime can be reduced when it is seen as a shared responsibility.
Even though we continue to drum home that policing is a shared responsibility, when people are terrified that when I report to the police, I become, hunted, chances are that you are going to run away. You won't report to the police. But I still think that let's have trust in the current police regime and support them to ensure that this rate of crime reduces.
The Ghana Broadcasting Corporation is putting in place structures to set up its own production house. As part of the move, management of the corporation has organized a training program for the technical production staff. This is in line with GBC's transformational agenda of moving from bureaucracy to business.
Management believes that for the state's broadcaster to achieve its overall goal of moving from bureaucracy to business, every staff member must be on board. In this light, staff of the technical production department have been schooled in operations of a new software acquired to help transform its production and rake in revenue for the corporation. They were also taken through modern trends of technology in the broadcasting industry and how the staff can adapt to these trends. The head of marketing, Mr. Tonyo said it is not enough for a training program to be organized, but every staff needs to be reoriented in the direction GBC is driving towards. The head of Studio Center, Mr. Benjamin Square, said they are ready to apply the knowledge they have acquired to help GBC achieve its goal.
One thing has to do with how we manage cost of production and leverage on that to make more profits. The technology is there. How to tap into the technologization. So today we have all learned and benefited that one way we can do that is to leverage the technology we have. And thankfully, GBC already has taken the lead. But the technical advisor has been given. So we have provided certain logistics, which we know is going to help us achieve that. And so you'll be seeing that often. Even for news, you'll be seeing it. Now this is just one reporter. You'll be able to go, bring live feed, report on it, either go live or bring your recording for editing.
Mr. Paul Archer expressed the hope that the training has equipped staff with the requisite skills and knowledge to reposition GBC as the most authentic and trusted voice of Ghana.
Now we say the world is a global village. So you are only not thinking of Ghana, you are thinking of the whole world. What is new in the world today? You must also incorporate that in your activities, in your programming, and you must have a focus. You must have all the target groups. We have the youth, we have the elderly, we have those who can only speak some particular language. And at the same time too, we have people who are only interested in some type of music and all that. And GBC must be strategically placed to satisfy everybody, not losing the sight of that financial aspect, which will also keep us doing what the people want us to do.
A former staff of GBC, Mr. Frederick Kumase, and the Director General of GBC were awarded for their contribution to the corporation.
A research conducted by WaterAid Ghana has revealed that 80% of diseases in Ghana are caused by drinking unsafe water and poor sanitation. WaterAid Ghana has therefore called on government to prioritize the production of clean water, good sanitation and hygiene in national climate adaptation planning to combat climate change. WaterAid made the call at a breakfast meeting with interest groups in Accra.
In 2020, WaterAid Global embarked on the climate change advocacy, and Ghana, being a member country, developed an advocacy strategy, one of which is to lobby decision makers to focus on climate change issues. The meeting in Accra is second in the series of dialogues by WaterAid to engage stakeholders in water, sanitation and hygiene (WASH) in the country. WaterAid Ghana presented the outcome of the research it conducted on the impact of climate change on water security. According to the research, Northern Ghana is the worst affected with regard to climate change. Dr. Enchibwe Siakun of EPA led the discussion on the research findings. The participants, who included representatives from Environmental Protection Agency, EPA, Ministry of Gender, Children and Social Protection, Ghana Statistical Service, Institute for Environment and Sanitation at the University of Ghana, and experts in the WASH sector, were concerned about the practical effect of climate change on the individual livelihood and policy implementation.
The question is, how are we as individual institutions and sectors understanding or digesting these issues, and how are we domesticating these important studies and lessons that are flowing out from national policies and individual researches that we are undertaking.
The head of programs at WaterAid Ghana, Mr. Jesse Kofi Danku, lamented over why those directly affected by climate change are left out of national climate adaptation dialogues.
The government needs to take action to ensure that whatever intervention is happening, clean water is prioritized. And innovatively engage climate change prone sensitive communities in national climate adaptation dialogues. For this Galamsey issue, I think government must devise a new strategy. Let the communities or the areas themselves lead the fight against the Galamsey. Then government can come from behind and crack the whip.
WaterAid Ghana says it will continue with its advocacy on climate change until the needed change is realized. Rachel Quarty, GBC News, Accra.
After COVID-19 derailed the annual third trimester field practical training program of the University of Development Studies in 2020, the program is back on track this year with over 7,000 students deployed in over 700 communities in 4 regions to support development efforts. Seeing them off at a ceremony in Kintampo in the Bono East region, the Vice-Chancellor of UDS, Professor Gabriel Tay, advised the students to approach the program with all seriousness since it is a crucial part of their academic work. This practical program is unique, and through it, the UDS offers functional and practically oriented higher education to its students. Through the TTFPP, the UDS provides a platform for blending academics with everyday community life to engender constructive interactions to speed up development. Students spend time in the communities identifying problems and helping find solutions to them. This year, communities in the Upper East, Bono East, Bono and Afu regions will receive students. In all, there will be 7,630 students in 763 communities. The first batch of students gathered at the College of Health in Kintampo for their send-off. They were taken through briefs on psychological and emotional challenges in rural communities, health and COVID-19 prevention. The Vice-Chancellor of UDS, Professor Gabriel Tay, advised the students to make the most of the opportunity since it is a 6-credit course and will add up towards their degrees.
To some of you, you are going back to places you are familiar with. Others might have not lived in such environment. But I said that human beings have the ability to adapt. Over the period of time, you will get used to where you are and you'll be able to carry your work.
The director of the DCROP of UDS, Professor Ada Wase, also reminded the students to work hard as the UDS wants to produce practically oriented students.
It carries 6 credits, and you can imagine that is like 3 courses put together if they are 3 credits. I mean, yes, 2, and then 3 if they are 2 credits. It suggests to you that the program is very, very important. It can make you a 1st class or a 3rd class student, or it can actually send you back home. they don't take it very serious.
The Bono East Regional Director of Health Services, Dr. Fred Adomako Boateng, briefed the students about COVID-19. He said adherence to the COVID-19 preventive measures are now even more important since the Delta variant is spreading also in the Bono East.
Now, many women in some parts of the world still suffer abusive acts committed either by relatives or their spouses. Many of such violent acts could be in the form of child or spousal abuse. In the following report, Peter Agangre from the Upper East region tells us how women who give birth to only girls are treated in his part of the country. This opens our September window for the public to send reports from their localities in what we term citizen journalism.
In some communities, a woman is blamed and maltreated when there is no child after years of marriage. The birth of a boy is usually cause for celebration in some cultures, but the birth of a girl child is generally seen as a burden. Some women in this part of the country are abused if they fail to give birth to boys. And this is just the latest in a series of high-profile crimes against women in the country. Few months back, I came across this young woman from the Nabdan district who, according to her, is facing several forms of abuse from her husband because she has given birth to only girls. Monica and her husband have been married for 15 years. The first 3 years of the marriage were passionate, according to her, but things started turning sour when she had her second child, another girl. Monica and her husband currently have 4 children, all girls. Instead of being celebrated and loved, she's rather facing dejection. Her husband barely spends time with her. Her husband now spends more time with another woman outside their marital home, rather than his legally married wife.
Anytime I visit the market, my rival will report me to my husband that I didn't greet her when I saw her. My husband will also beat me up and ask why I went to the market. The painful thing is that he is accusing me of not doing enough to give him a male child. He even beats up the girls anytime he sees us together.
At a point in our conversation, Monica opens up and told me her story. She recollected how her husband threatened to send her packing because he was no longer interested in her since she hasn't born a male child. At this point, she could not hold back her tears and broke down.
It came to a time he told me he was no longer interested in me. He asked what my use here is when I am not giving him a male child.
Now Monica is very worried because her husband doesn't give her any money for upkeep. Money for their daughters to go to school is also not forthcoming. The survival of the children depend on her. Her wish is to get some capital to begin a business and become financially independent. That way, she can support her children on her own. This situation is just one of the many acts of abuse meted out to women in some parts of the country in present day. Even though the man determines the sex of a child, women more often than not are accused and mistreated for something that is no fault of theirs. Peter Agengre reporting.
You're still watching News Hour Live on GBC News. For a post-election survey conducted by the Ghana Center for Democratic Development, CDD, Ghanaians expect politicians and public officials to be accountable for their actions, show integrity in their words, and be honest, respectful, and competent.
The survey, initiated in 2016, was aimed at picking early warning signals by tracking public opinion on the overall level of the country's preparedness for elections and post-election. to complement the already existing pre-election surveys, which have since the last two elections contributed to the peaceful conduct of polls. The center initiated the post-election survey in 2021 to measure citizens' post-elections expectations and views on local government and decentralization issues. Dr. Kojo Asante is the Director of Advocacy and Policy Engagement.
It's a hope that the results from the research we are releasing today and what we will release subsequently will be useful in helping the leadership of the country as well as the political class work towards addressing the concerns of citizens. And there's our hope that the media and the general public will hold our leaders to account to ensure that we reap the dividends of democracy.
This year, the post-election survey focused on the ruling government performance so far, expectations of the citizenry on the 8th Parliament, and manifesto promises made during the election campaigns. The Director of Research, Dr. Edem Salome, presented the findings of the survey. Top 5 policy priorities Ghanaians want the government to address are unemployment, infrastructure and roads, education, management of the economy, and health.
If these are the priorities, where should resources be allocated? Again, we asked citizens the priority for additional government investment. Again, we see education up there, infrastructure, healthcare, and agriculture as the 4 areas that Ghanaians actually recommend for additional investment in case government wants to increase spending.
Former Minister for Health under the John Mahama administration, Mr. Alexander Sebefia, commended CDD for the good work done and called on the government to work on issues of corruption to gain the confidence of all.
Ghana, we now have freedom. Ghana, land of freedom. Toils of the brave and the sweat of their labors. Toils of the brave which have brought results. Kwame, the star of Ghana. Nkrumah, star of Ghana, everybody calls of the brave and the sweat of their labors, calls of the brave which have brought results.
Welcome back.
You're still watching the news live on GBC News.